Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this World Council of Credit Unions virtual event, Flossom, Creating Connections Through Human Error. My name is Greg Newman, Director of Communications for World Council of Credit Unions. There is a certain kind of magic within human connection, but what binds that connection? Well, believe it or not, making mistakes do. Owning our mistakes, sharing our lessons, and empowering others to be exactly who they are is the not-so-secret sauce of coworker and member relations. And today, that's the message from Nancy Wilson, Marketing and Community Engagement Manager at University Federal Credit Union in Grand Forks, North Dakota, here in the United States. She's going to take you on a journey that includes the humorous pivotal moments in her life where she knew she needed to own up, speak up, buckle up, and empower the world around her. If you have any questions for Nancy throughout this webinar, we ask that you please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type them in there. I'll be asking those questions of Nancy at the end of her presentation as time allows. I'm going to bring in Nancy now, and I have to say on a personal level, Nancy, I think this is a great message. I think people don't embrace their mistakes enough, but thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can everybody see my screen? I just want to make sure before I start.
We do see it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am Nancy Wilson, as he said, from Grand Forks, North Dakota. So you're going to hear some long O's here. But I'm here to talk to you about being Flossom. And I'm going to explain what that means and how that creates those connections that make work environments, home environments, and just life environments so much easier and better. But first, before I do that, I want to introduce myself. I have been married for 25 years to my husband, Mark. He is the fire chief in our small little town in Minto, North Dakota. He is a wonderful man. I'm the crazy to his calm. This is my 16-year-old son, Cooper. He has officially entered the teen years with a little bit of attitude, but we're getting through that for sure. This is our newest rescue, Tucker. We rescue all of our animals, and I don't know who rescues who, honestly. And this is what North Dakota looks like right now. This last weekend, we got 10 plus inches of snow. So it has been, winter came in really loudly this year. But in order for me to talk to you about being authentic, I wanted to introduce myself and introduce my family and my life to you so that you can feel comfortable throughout this. I want to start off by saying that this is a safe place because we're about to have real conversations. So anything said in here, even though it's being recorded, just keep in mind that this is a safe space to talk about those things that maybe we're not used to talking about. So what is Flossom? That's where we're going to start. And why should you even care about it? Flossom is knowing that you are awesome despite all the flaws that you have. As leaders, we're kind of conditioned to be polished at all times and be present and be perfect and look acceptable. But guess what? We're human and we're not robots. So to present the polished self, leaders were often expected to know all the answers, not get frazzled when we're asked questions that we don't know, always be on, and always look in tip-top shape. And always respond appropriately. When I'm looking at that list, I think to myself, the pressure of it all. Can you imagine having to check off all of those boxes every day, every single time? And never have personal issues. It's just not real because we're not robots. If you're always trying to be normal, you'll never know how amazing you can be. And that's what Flossom is all about, is being your authentic self, bring it to the table loudly and proudly, and causing those connections with people who are willing to be just as vulnerable as you are. Why are we scared to be our authentic selves? Because we're afraid to look silly, right? We're afraid that people are going to look at us differently. Like maybe we're not the polished people that we should be. Maybe we shouldn't be in the leadership positions. Maybe we should be quieter, be a little light-footed, not say the things that are on our minds. But in reality, that's not real possible. We're humans and we do the best we can on a daily basis. Recently, I went to New Mexico to be an MC at a credit union conference. Now, most people were texting me going, how is New Mexico? How is it wonderful? I bet it's wonderful. And this is probably the picture they wanted me to send them, right? They wanted me to send that I was happy. It was wonderful. I was just loving the sun. And the truth of the matter was, I was melting. I'm from North Dakota, and this is what I sent them instead. I was absolutely melting from head to toe. New Mexico was beautiful from the inside where air conditioning was, but I wasn't afraid to show the fact that I wasn't this first picture. I was definitely the second picture. So let's start at my beginning. Where did Flossom even come from, and why does it matter? I don't know about you, about all of you, but have you heard of the company Toys R Us? When I was a teenager, I started a job at Toys R Us. Wonderful place, full of toys, full of kids, full of wonderful things that every child wants. But I was actually the mascot. I got to be the mascot for the grand opening of the Sioux Falls, South Dakota store. Now, they took this very, very seriously. I had to train in that outfit. I had to walk in that outfit. I had to make sure that I kept track of the long head that the giraffe had. There were actually two heavy, heavy metal bars by my face with a little tiny peephole that would tell me or show me where I was headed. So I spent a couple of weeks walking in this, practicing the rules, which were not talking. Jeffrey did not talk. Jeffrey certainly did not swear. And Jeffrey was not to hit anybody or hurt anybody in any way. It was kind of like game day for me, right? It was opening, grand opening. Balloons were blown up. Children were everywhere. And I was coming out of the gate like, yes, I have this. I am going to do wonderful. I've been practicing. I can walk. I'm not going to talk. It's going to be wonderful. The fact of the matter is, the moment that I came out of that store, a child came running up to me. And I was just so happy to see this child, so excited to see Jeffrey the giraffe, that I completely did not pay attention to the fact that his mom was really closely behind him. So when I bent down to hug this child, I knocked the mom out onto the pavement. Not only that, I spoke. Not only that, I swore. I did all three things that I was not supposed to do all at once. And those were where my lessons truly started in my career path. I did it. I couldn't deny that I had did it. I had broken every single rule. I had done everything wrong that they had told me not to do. I was embarrassed, and I found it hysterical because when I'm nervous, I laugh. I was immediately taken back to the break room where I was reprimanded for what I had done. There was no point in me saying I didn't do it, because not only that, there were TV cameras, there were pictures being taken. It was one of those things that I absolutely could not deny. I wasn't a superstar. I was a mascot, but in my brain, when that happened, all of the balloons were deflating. The children were screaming. There was mass chaos going on. And the truth of the matter is, things went on. I put my outfit back on. I put my long neck of accountability back on, and I went back out there. The lady that I knocked to the ground thought it was pretty hilarious that she had been KO'd by the Jeffrey the giraffe from Toys R Us. And in the future, I began training other future giraffes about my huge mistake. And I realized that authenticity and that vulnerability of me saying, whoa, did I screw up, really created an atmosphere of allowing people and empowering people to be vulnerable enough to be human. So more importantly, I shared this epic fail with literally everyone. It was one of my go-to stories when I would train, when I would talk about working, when I would talk about work experiences. And the lessons at Toys R Us never stopped. I allowed a child to use the intercom because he wanted to, and I thought it was a great idea until he swore on there and it echoed through all of the aisles. I destroyed a display thinking that I could rollerblade. We were allowed to test out toys, and I decided one day I was going to rollerblade with these brand new rollerblades. I had never rollerbladed in my life, and that showed, and I knocked out a display that was just put up. And then being a teenager, I thought I kind of knew everything. And at one point, I asked my team lead if he had put on his crappy pants that day, which didn't go over very well. These are all lessons that I learned early on, and owning them helped to create and mold the professional that I am today. To really start it out about how I got into credit unions and why I'm here, I need to tell you how my journey into the credit union world started. I had fallen on some hard medical times, and I had my son just recently. I wanted to get a loan from my local bank. I know it's a bad word, but I wanted to get a loan from my local bank, who I had been there for many, many years, no overdrawn accounts, no negative marks in my account. I met with the loan officer, who does what they typically do, right? They run your credit and they go to that universal copy machine in the middle of the bank, and then they slowly judge you all the way back, right? And I knew that that's what he was doing, and I knew it wasn't good. Medical bills had hit me hard. He sat across from me, and I'll never forget, because he folded his hands almost like a villain doing this. And he said to me, not only will I not give you $300, that's all I was asking, I will not give you $300 for your loan. You probably will never own your own home either. I was stunned. I was stunned. I was embarrassed. I was speechless for once in my life. And I remember just getting up from that desk, going to the teller line, pulling my funds, and going to my car and just sobbing. I was humiliated. I didn't know anything about credit unions at that time, but I knew that one had opened up temporarily in a spot downtown. So I went there thinking, you know, as a mom always does, I'm going to give my son a Christmas. So I went in and I told the same story that I told the banker to the credit union loan officer. And the difference was clear. She got tears in her eyes. She empathized with me. She grabbed the top of my hand and said, we're going to help you. And I had the loan that day. Here's the deal. Not more than 2 years later, I bought my first home. And what I did is I sent that banker an open house invitation, not to be mean, but to tell him in so many words that, hey, you don't have a crystal ball for people. Numbers do not judge a person's journey. And I wanted him to know that I had bought that house he told me that I never would have. He didn't come for my open house, but that's okay. I wanted him to learn that lesson, and I wanted to be vulnerable enough to let him know that he had told a story of my life that wasn't true. When I started in the credit union, I started out as a teller and then moved to a member service manager. And that is where my first firing had to happen. Now, by all rights, I am an outgoing and happy-go-lucky gal. So I knew that this was going to be tough for me. I had rehearsed. I had come to the work early. I had rehearsed, it's just not working out for us. We need maybe to find a better place for you. We'll give you a reference. I had done this in the mirror because I knew it made me so nervous. So when she came in and I started my spiel to let her know that, we were going to let her go, everything broke loose. She started to yell at me. She started to call me names. She threw her keys at me. She told me where to go and how to get there. And all I could say was, thank you. And she left. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am terrible at this. This is awful. So what I said versus what she probably heard is I said, this isn't easy and I'm sorry it had to come to this. And what she heard is must suck to suck. And what I said, I'm sure you're worried about what's next. You want a right fit here, but perhaps we can help you find a better fit somewhere. What she heard is enjoy living in your car. What I thought I said is, I understand you're upset right now, and I know who you're mad at, and I get it. But if you want to talk on a later date about this, I will welcome a conversation where we can talk about what happened and why it came to this spot. And what she probably heard is, I woke up today to ruin your life, and I win. So what I thought I looked like firing her was this: compassionate, empathetic, caring. This is really what she saw. Flawsome is knowing that you are flawed and being okay with sharing and learning from it. Let's just be honest. I sucked at firing. In my next review, I listed exactly that as my weakness. Those are my exact words. I suck at firing. And one of my favorite quotes is, be brave enough to suck at something new. I don't know that I was brave that day, but I definitely sucked at something new, and I was willing to learn and figure out how to be better. Sometimes you have to normalize the suck. And these are things that people don't typically say, right? Especially professionals. Normalize the suck. What are you bad at in life? And what are you bad at in your career? I would love to see in the chat some of the things that you maybe can admit to that you're bad at in your career. What are some things that you are bad at? I would love to see the chat and see some of those things pop up so that we can relate with each other and talk about things. I'm not good at firing. I'm not good at the confrontational pieces of things. I sometimes try to throw glitter on things that don't need glitter. Those are the things that I have trouble with. In the chat, share with us what you have trouble with. Dealing with people who push deadlines a lot. Yes, procrastinators. That's a tough one. Keep on sharing in there, and let us know. And that way we can learn from each other and know that it's not something that's taboo. As leaders, it is okay to normalize the suck. Bad at taking breaks and vacations. Oh, I hear you, girl. I hear you. The guilt sometimes. So let's go on here. As leaders, we're expected to be the example. Keep sharing those things that you're not good at. But we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. That's one thing that we can put bank in all the time. We have bad days. We don't always conquer a new task the first try. Can we admit that? We need to ask for help too. Why is it taboo to ask our staff, our coworkers, or maybe somebody that we report to or don't report to for help? Why is that taboo? We need to stop expecting ourselves and our employees to leave their human at the door. It's not possible. Have you ever heard that? Leave your feelings at your door. Leave the bad days at the door. If that were possible, boy, oh boy. But it's not. And we have to stop expecting it. Things a stereotypical supervisor would probably say: leave your personal issues at the door. If you have time to leave, you have time to clean. That was always the one I did not like at all. I've asked for that report twice. Are you being productive? Why did you clock in late? Your lunch is 30 minutes, not 35. Less chit chat, more working. Things a leader would say: it seems you have some heavy things going on. Need an ear? Takes just a little bit of effort. Put me on that cleaning list. We need to all roll up our sleeves here. Lean in. You are part of that team. It is so beautiful today. Maybe an extra 5 minutes for each one of your lunch breaks is in order. How easy is that to brighten the day? I noticed the report I asked for isn't in my inbox yet. Can I help you with anything? Maybe there's reasons you're not seeing that report's not done. Asking and tone are so huge. I would love to see what you've been working so diligently on today, instead of are you being productive? There's ways to say things and tones to use that completely change the atmosphere. In the chat, this is where we get brave. I want you to tell me about your worst experience with a leader. I want you to let me know. This is a safe place. To learn about the good leaders, we must understand what qualifies as a bad leader. And while you tell me in the chat some of the things that you have experienced from a bad leader, I want to tell you about one of my situations. I was starting at a grocery store, and the manager of the store was walking me around. And we passed an elderly woman, and he said to her, "Oh my goodness, that brooch on your scarf is the most beautiful brooch I've ever seen." And she said, "Well, thank you so much. That makes me feel so wonderful." We then walked past her into the back room where nobody else could see us. And he looked at me and he said, "That is the ugliest brooch I've ever seen. And that's how you do customer service." I was appalled. I was absolutely appalled. I have to share one of Carolyn's. I had a boss who called me into his office and closed the door against company policy every day to tell me he was going to fire me. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. When I asked more than once for them to clarify something, they were so, oh my gosh, the stories, keep sharing those. That's what binds us. That's the honesty that we need as leaders and team players to understand that we are not alone. With that being said, I want you to tell me also about your best experience with a leader. What qualifies a leader as the best? Is there a certain quality? Is there a certain situation you've had where that leader completely made you a better employee, a better person? I want to talk about the good leaders. So now that we've discussed in the chat some of the bad leaders, tell me about the best. What qualities would you say a best leader has? When did we start thinking leaders had to be perfect? Why don't we trade perfection for mindful? Why don't we trade polished for real? Why don't we trade acknowledgement for empathy? So when I started in the credit union world, one of the things that I hated was logo gear. I'm a plus size woman, and all the logo gear seemed to be spandex. You know, that tight stuff that's unforgiving on any wrinkles, bumps, lumps, or anything that you have. So when they would order a logo for the team, I just wouldn't wear it. It's not that it didn't fit right. And I didn't feel comfortable. And you're not going to do your best work when you don't feel comfortable. And my manager came to me and said, "Why don't you wear logo gear?" And I was kind of embarrassed to say, "Well, it just doesn't fit me right." So instead I said, "Well, if you want me to, I'll wear it tomorrow." And he said, "Okay, wear it tomorrow. I would love to see it." So I wore it the next day. And every single time I laughed, it rolled up like a sardine can over my belly. He eventually told me that I could change. I had to be vulnerable enough for him to know that I felt uncomfortable, but he needed to see it, and I was willing to share it. So how I wanted to feel versus what I really looked like gave him the idea that, you know what, logo gear has to be for everyone. And it was a good way, humorously, to tell him that one size does not fit all. Laughing at yourself is vital. Telling an unflattering story, sharing the laughter, that's the magic component to authentic connections in life, in career, with teammates, as a leader. It gives employees and coworkers permission to share their feelings and their authentic moments and still feel like an important part of the team. Our jobs as leaders and coworkers and teammates is to allow people to feel like they always have a place at the table, despite anything. It cultivates that atmosphere of comfort and loyalty. I'm going to relate better to you if I know that you're real and that you tell me you screw up too. Culture, culture, culture. Did I say culture? One of the most important things is knowing that you have to take responsibility for the energy you bring into each and every single room that you enter. That energy reflects on everyone that's in that atmosphere, and that can be contagious, both good and bad. Let's face it, better culture is needed now more than ever. This meme made me laugh so hard because it's true. Thinking about fully staffed work after the pandemic, we have certainly seen places run on a very skeleton chef. Quiet quitting is something that is very new that I have just recently heard of. It's when your best employees are so overworked and so pressured that they slowly pull back on the things that they've always done because they're exhausted. They're not being acknowledged. They're being pushed too far. They're being expected too much. They quiet quit. Incentive chasing is another one where people are going to employments with short-term incentives. And then once they get that incentive, they're jumping ship and going to another job. That seems like a lot of work to me, but it's happening. And just plain out not showing up. How many people in here have hired someone and you just are so excited and that day comes around that they're supposed to start and crickets. They just don't show up. Sometimes we have to take all of these situations to the empathy wheel. Elements of the empathy wheel are observing, being aware of the surrounding emotions. Tune in, actively listen to the people around you. Don't just listen to what they're saying, but listen to what they're not saying. Relate. Try to relate to them when they're having a bad day. I've been there. I know how you feel. One time I did X, Y, and Z, and the world didn't end, and yours isn't going to either. That creates that connection, which is the next part, connect. And reaching out, saying something. When someone does something well, say something. When someone screws up, say something that helps them understand that that is normal. Empathy mapping and practicing knowing the bare minimum. So just for a quick example, this is what empathy mapping looks like. Let's say we take a member. She's age 35. She's divorced with 2 children. She always says yes. She stays until her projects are completed. She arrives on time for the day. She takes a minimum lunch. She greets and smiles everyone. This is an employee. I'm sorry, it's not a member. It's an employee. So take all of this information and think, how could we treat her as a leader? How could we do this? How can we best lead her? It's pretty simple. She seems to be doing just great. Here's what we don't know. She drives a car that needs major repairs. She has 2 maxed out credit cards trying to keep herself afloat. She works weekends at a local gas station for extra money. She shares custody of her children, fighting for full. She dreams of being an HR professional and taking online classes as she can afford them. Now, how best can you lead her? When you don't connect with your employees and you don't connect with your coworkers, you are unaware of what they need to survive. We all have those cups and the cups that need to be filled, and they all have different kinds of filling. We don't know unless we listen, unless we ask, unless we connect. This is what an empathy map looks like. I won't hover on it because it's something that I know a lot of people in the credit union world know, but sometimes when you go through things and you meet people that are difficult or team leaders that are difficult to connect with or coworkers that are a little gruff, sometimes you have to take it to the empathy map. Who are they? What are they thinking and feeling? What are they seeing? What are they saying and doing? What are they hearing? Now, you can't necessarily stop in the middle of life and think, hey, I got to go through this empathy map to figure you out. It's one of those things in the back of your mind that when someone is rude to you or maybe lashes out to you, it's understanding that more than likely it's not about you. Empathy must be shown outside of work. It's a lifestyle. And I'll tell you where my pivotal moment was in public. I had gone to Walmart. I know, scary. I had gone to Walmart to do some grocery shopping, and it was one of those beginning of the month of grocery shopping where I definitely needed everything. So I was in line and putting all of my items on the belt, and a lady behind me with one, I think she had maybe 2 items, was telling me under her breath that I was fat because of the food that I was buying, that I bought the whole grocery store, that she wasn't sure where I got my clothing because it probably had to be from a tent surplus store. She continued to berate me and berate me and berate me until all of my groceries were on the belt. I didn't know what to do, and any other time I probably would have wanted the world to suck me up and just hide. But instead, I turned around, I put my hand out, and I said, "Hi, my name is Nancy." And I did that because I became human to her. I became someone that wasn't just an item in front of her that she could get mad at for whatever reason. In doing that, I learned that it was her 3-year-old boy's birthday. She couldn't afford presents. She couldn't afford a cake. She only could afford the 98-cent cake from Walmart that he didn't like. She didn't have the items to really make it. She was going to just kind of wing it. She didn't have any, she just didn't have the money. And what I was to her was somebody that was affording all of these things that she couldn't. You know how that ended? Was with a hug. I hugged her. We went back to the bakery. I bought her son a cake, and we left. We parted ways. I don't need to see her again, but I needed her to know that I was a human being, and that whatever was happening with her, I understood was not about me. And that one ended well. Some of them don't, but this one did. I hugged her, we parted ways, and in my heart, I hope her son had the best birthday ever. Let's be honest, as a leader, what frustrates you the most? In the chat, tell me what frustrates you the most. Is it people thinking that you have to know it all? Is it people thinking that you have to be polished all the time? Is it people thinking that you have to have all of the answers? In the chat, let me know what frustrates you. And let's be honest, you can be a leader in any position you hold. So every one of you on this call, you're a leader. So tell me what frustrates you about that. Move over, Rose. There's Rube. So I want to tell you about the iceberg illusion. What we all know about people is what we see, the success. We see the tip of the iceberg, the top of the top, where you prime to get and the champion flex at the top, right? What we're not seeing is below the surface. How did you get there? What failures happened to get you there? What sacrifices did you make to get there? Tell me about your disappointments. Tell me about the dedication you had to have. Tell me about what you had to give up in order to succeed. All of these things are below the surface level of the things that people show us. So seeing the things that are below there, that's part of understanding that connecting authentically, being Flossom and owning it, creates that vulnerable atmosphere for people to say, yeah, I got here, but boy, was it hard. And let me tell you about the many times I failed on the way. So this last year, I was diagnosed with uterine cancer. It was quite a shock for me. I had gone to the doctor just for a regular appointment. I was going to have a hysterectomy, so I met with a surgeon a few weeks later, and it was during the workday. So I went to the surgeon appointment. I sat down, waited. I was super excited just to know when my surgery was. Let's get this going. She came in the room, she grabbed some tissues, and she sat it beside me. And I thought, well, that's weird. What's going on? And she said, your biopsy came back. The biopsies that they do before they can approve you for surgery. And you have cancer. And you know when they say that the world stops and you hear kind of like the Charlie Brown teacher, that wah, wah, wah. It's exactly what happened to me. All of a sudden, everything was flashing in front of my eyes. How am I going to make it? How am I going to take care of my family? How am I going to pay for more medical? How am I going to make this work? And you know, I went back to work directly after that appointment. I don't remember going down the elevator. I don't remember going in the car. I called my mom immediately and I cried. And I could see the fear in her face. And I thought, nope, I have to go back to work. I have to go back to work. I went back to work and I walked into my CEO's office. She said, are you okay? Because usually I'm like this. Usually I'm bubbly and I'm happy and I'm outgoing. And I said, I have cancer and I cannot afford to lose my job. And there was a difference there. She told me that she would be there with me and that this was my home. I was not going to lose my job and they would stand beside me. These are the bracelets of the wonderful people in my life, coworkers, family, friends that supported me during my cancer battle. This is me after surgery where they told me if I could eat a cookie, I could get the heck out of there. And boy, was I determined. And this is kind of what it felt like. You know, God was saying, I have a plan for your life. And it kind of felt like I was on a roller coaster. But the support that I had from my family, my friends, my employment, because I was real, because I didn't leave it at the door. They helped me day by day get through some of the hardest moments in my life. My leader laced up for me. She was beside me and she knew that every day that I came to work, I was carrying a heavy backpack. She asked questions. She checked in on me. She dug below that iceberg. She allowed me to have bad days. She provided me a safe place at work. And I want to introduce you to my CEO. This is Lacey. She is my CEO, and she stood beside me to the point where I don't even know how I could thank her enough. She gave me that safe place. She allowed me to work through tears. She allowed me to work when I was sick. She allowed me to work when I was terrified. She allowed me the normal when it was so chaotic in my life. And she stood beside me, and I will always be grateful for her. We have all been led by someone amazing. Perhaps their role was to lead you. Perhaps they were leading you and they had no idea. Regardless, it's time to say thank you. As a leader, you have this incredible opportunity to change the life of someone every single day. Leadership's not about tearing people down. It's about helping people become their very best. So now I want to give you this opportunity. You don't have to do it now, but I'd love for you to do it today. I want you to pull out your phone, pull up your email, pull up your instant messaging. And I want you to thank someone in your life that may or may not have known that they changed your life by being real, by allowing you to be you, by flexing their flossom right beside you and creating the person you are today, whether that be someone in work, someone personal, someone in your family. Tell them thank you. And don't just tell them thank you, tell them why. Tell them why you're thanking them. This is magic. When I do this in person, I have people raise their hands when people respond to these text messages, and it gives me goosebumps every time because you have just cultivated this positivity, this affirmation, this yay you atmosphere to someone that didn't expect it. That is so magical. I want you to share with me in the chat who you're going to be texting, who you're going to be thanking. If it's in your brain, I want you to put it into the chat. Tell them thank you and why. There are so many people that I would reach out to and tell thank you to. There's so many people that I would want to start with. My parents, my friends, my family, my CEO, the people even in my career journey that were not so wonderful, that taught me who I didn't want to be. I'm even grateful for those folks. Not that I would text them that, but there's so much to be grateful for, even in the moments that you feel lost. Those moments are molding you to be exactly who you are, exactly who you need to be for this world and to show up. I love this quote, be intellectually humble. With an intellectually humble culture, your team knows that failure is an option, that perfectionism is an unattainable at any level, and that part of the fun in our journey is what we will discover along the way. Bumps, bruises, laughter, all of those things, even the tears, are teaching us that it is okay to be a human being and a professional. Leadership isn't about being a picture-perfect example. Leadership is about empowering your team to feel safe enough to make mistakes. I would rather have a manager or a direct supervisor or CEO that I can go up to and say, I royally screwed this up, and complain about it and then fix it collectively. Fix it cooperatively, like credit unions, coming together to understand we're all human. That brings me to the org chart. Let's flip it. The org chart shouldn't be a leader looking down at all the employees that they handle. The leader should be at the bottom, lifting those employees up to empower them to be the best that they can be. We are all leaders, from the front line to the top of the line. We're all leaders. We're all lifting each other up on different levels. The org chart should never be a triangle. It should be upside down. We should always be empowering. And I want to leave you with this. Don't make yourself small for anyone. if you laugh too loud, if you're too smiley. I think someone said that you're too cheery. If you're too something, you're not too anything to have a seat at the table. You bring something to the table. You bring that authentic magic, authenticity that everyone needs. And if that table doesn't have a chair, you bring your own. Don't make yourself small for anyone. Be the awkward, funny, intelligent, beautiful little weirdo that you are, and don't hold back. My name is Nancy Wilson, and I would love to connect with you. If you have any questions for me, if you would like to email me, if you have a situation that you want to talk out, I'm your girl. I'll be your hype girl from here on out. Thank you so much for listening to me today.
Nancy, thank you so much. I have to be honest, I've hosted probably 3 or 4 dozen of these since COVID-19 we went virtual, and I don't think I've ever seen a webinar where we've had this many positive comments coming in about the message and the presentation of the message. You know, we have had a lot of chat and a lot of comments. I don't have any open questions right now, but I wanted to ask you, when did the light bulb go off for you that this was an important message? And I ask that because just a few months ago, I personally posted on my own LinkedIn after I turned 50, kind of a message for younger people. And it was a similar message in that I said, embrace your failures, over your career, because that's really going to define you when you can learn from those and realize and get some perspective. When did the light bulb go off for you that this was the perspective that you had was worthwhile here?
I think the light bulb went off for me when I got a little bit older and I got into careers where I was terrified to admit when I had made a mistake. I was terrified when I needed help and to ask for help because the atmosphere and the culture made me terrified to do so. And I thought, this is not leadership. This is not how one should feel. If you preach team and you preach leadership and you preach empowerment, fear has no place there. So I realized that some of those moments had shaped me and led me in the direction of creating Flossom. And knowing that it's okay, even as a leader, to admit that you have flaws and own them, but also it's important as a leader to create that culture and that freedom for employees and coworkers to come up to you and say, I've royally messed up. I need some help. Ooh, let's do this. And I want to hear how you've messed up too, so that we can connect and I can talk to you in the future and feel comfortable.
We do have a few questions coming in from the attendees now. Jenny Lynn asks, what benefits, she says, first of all, some persons do not own up to mistakes for fear of showing weakness or possibly not being considered for promotions. She wants to know, what benefits did you derive from owning your own mistakes?
Accountability. I talk about the Jeffrey the Giraffe situation as a pun, but a long neck of accountability. That really was my first situation where I couldn't deny what I had done. I knew that I had broken all 3 of the rules. I needed to own up to it, and the world did not end. I learned throughout my career as I started my journey, especially in credit unions, I learned that owning your mistakes and saying, I messed this up, got some respect in return. Rather than shoveling that under the table and saying, oh yes, I've done it, it's perfect, it's wonderful, and it's good enough, I started to own the things that I was not good at, or the things that I stressed out about so badly that I did screw up at. And in return, that ended up gaining me some respect from my supervisors, from my coworkers, because I wasn't just this robot, right? I wasn't just this person doing my job perfectly all the time. I was somebody that loved my job, but let's be honest, I was terrible at some parts of it. I had to learn and I had to ask for help, and asking for help in turn created that atmosphere of respect.
Another question here, and this is something I know when I was younger, I could relate to this when I was younger. Amber asks, I truly struggle being a professional and being myself. I am terrified of being rejected and not being seen as professional enough. How do I make that transition to be authentic?
I think it's baby steps. I think sometimes there's people that do better with ripping the Band-Aid off and letting the weird flag fly. I was kind of one of those people that was like, well, here it is. Here I am. I was the kid at school that would just sit at a lunch table the first day and say, hey, my name's Nancy. My sister, on the other hand, was terribly shy. She would sit alone because that was her comfort. I think it's comfort level. Being Flossom, flexing your Flossom, owning your mistakes, being your authentic self. Sometimes it takes baby steps. Sharing a story about yourself, having a conversation with a coworker or a team lead, laughing. These are little baby steps into bringing your authenticity to the workplace and really showing up. The thing is we are so concerned about what people think that we're not respecting ourselves enough to be who we are. And your respect needs to start with you first. So putting yourself first, putting who you are out there, you're enough. So start those baby steps that make you feel comfortable rolling that ball.
Yeah, and I would ask you too. I mean, I think one of the things that I have realized over my career is that you're not, if you be yourself, that's not going to work everywhere, right? But you will find places where being yourself is a good fit. And I think it's important to continue to try to be yourself and be professional, but you don't want to I mean some people may be a little over the top, but I think it's important to know if it doesn't work out being yourself somewhere, there are other places where it's probably going to work out just fine. I don't know if you feel that same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is not my first credit union. My first credit union that I worked at, I loved it. They cultivated the passion in my credit union movement, my personal credit union movement. The culture changed and I knew it was no longer for me. Broke my heart, but I felt uncomfortable. And I knew at that point, you spend a good chunk of time at work. You need to be comfortable. You need to be appreciated. You need to be somewhere where you walk in that door and you feel like a valuable part of that team. And if you're not at that place, then wherever you are now is just a stepping stone. It's definitely important to know that you're not stuck. You just haven't found that fit yet. But it's important too. You owe it to yourself.
Yeah, and I think too, not to steal all your thunder on this, but I also think too, give yourself time. I mean, if you start at a job and in 3 months you feel uncomfortable, it doesn't mean you're going to feel uncomfortable in 15 months. It might, but give yourself some time.
Right. It's growing pains, right? It's the growing pains of life. It's the growing pains of career. And it really is sitting down with yourself and saying, what do I expect from an employment? When an employer is interviewing you, they're interviewing you to see if you're a good fit for them. But what about you? You have to take that moment too to see if they're a good fit for you. Sometimes jobs are lessons. Sometimes jobs are platforms. Opportunity always knocks at the craziest times. Just keep your eyes open, but the respect first is for you. Feel comfortable enough to sit at the seat you're in.
Another question, Nicole asks, how do you lift yourself up when your brain tricks you into thinking that you are not? I have an amazing leader, but I still have doubts in my work that I have to convince myself I am worthy.
Ooh, our inner voices can be such bullies. They really can. I am not immune to that. I am very open to the fact that I have functioning anxiety. I have that bully on my shoulder that sometimes says, ooh, you cannot do that, girl. I have learned to kind of flick that off of my shoulder and do it anyway. We all have that inner voice, that inner bully that gives us doubts. But if you're in that seat, you're worthy to be at that seat. Our inner voices, our inner whatever you want to call them, are sometimes going to be our downers. You have to be strong enough to know that you're in that seat for a reason. And when you are having those feelings, that's when you lean on the people around you, maybe coworkers, your friends, maybe it's your supervisor, your CEO. the people that lift you up, the people that empower you. I always want to be in a room of people that are shouting my name when there's opportunity. Surround yourself with people that you know you and your worth. Sometimes we all need that pep coach.
Another question we have, how do you suggest to balance being yourself with a desire to improve yourself and becoming satisfied with yourself to the point there is adversity to change? Not 100% sure I understand that question, but maybe you do.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question either. I think what I'm getting from that is possibly that being yourself enough in your work environment and your personal environment where you feel it's okay to make those changes in the direction of being authentic. I think, like I said, for some people, I think it's easy just to take that curve really strongly and just come in like, hey, here I am, and this is what I bring to the table. Some people need to take those baby steps into kind of small wise, coming into their own and learning who they are. Sometimes we're learning who we are on the job. We're learning what we bring to the table on a particular day on the job. We're going to always continue to evolve and learn, especially with people around us and the different types of leadership. You're going to learn how you want to lead, how you don't want to lead. Those small changes that you make every single day, you're making them without even realizing it now. So you're doing the hard work now. It's just realizing that you're worthy enough to be the real you.
Well, I think that's it for the questions from the attendees. I don't see any more. But Nancy, somebody just commented, some may be satisfied with flaws and not want to change. And that's true too. I mean, I do think there are people who say to themselves, I am who I am at this point, and that's what it's going to be. So we've definitely all seen that. So thank you so much. Just a super presentation, and just want to remind folks that this is going to be online. If you want to share it with any of your coworkers or anything like that, it was recorded. It will be available later today on the World Council YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/Woku. So you can find it there, and please share out that link to anybody who wants to see it, because it's a really worthwhile presentation here. And if you like today's webinar and you want to participate in some awesome in-person learning and networking activities next year, I encourage you to visit the website wcuc.org. You can find out more about the 2023 World Credit Union Conference we'll be hosting in Vancouver with the Canadian Credit Union Association. That's set for July 23rd through the 26th. We'll have over 30 educational sessions throughout that 4-day event, and conference attendees will hear from global industry experts on a wide variety of topics. And the extensive education program also includes 32 concurring breakout sessions, workshops, and keynote sessions, as well as a Solutions Center geared towards solving today's credit union challenges. Again, that's at wcuc.org, and registration is now open. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great Tuesday.